Page 66, Morning. At the top of the page, they're introducing two new symbols for you to learn and know from now on forever. The symbol for crescendo and the symbol for diminuendo. It's a long sideways arrow, sort of like the little accent arrow we had before, except this isn't over one note. This will be stretched out over several notes, two or more notes, I should say. So don't confuse it with an accent sign. An accent sign is over one note only. This is different. Crescendo, we're back to the Italian things again. Crescendo means to gradually get louder. Well, that'll be fun. Diminuendo is going the other way. You gradually get softer. The trick is how much louder or softer you get. Sometimes they don't tell you. Well, we're back to interpretation. Now we have to decide for ourselves what we're going to do. How do we feel it should be? On page 66 at the bottom, second line, you see the one arrow and then the other arrow. Now, some people have a problem in remembering which arrow does what. And I do it by reading the arrow. We read from left to right, typically. That's how we do it. So if the arrow starts at a point and the lines gradually get further apart, you get louder. And if the lines start apart and gradually come together to a point, you get softer. And that's how I remember which is which. So here in the second line, you see the arrow, the lines are getting further apart, we're going to get louder. And then the other arrow, the lines come together, we're going to get softer. So we get louder and then we get softer in there. When they do it this way, where you get louder and then softer, we call that a swell. You swell up and then come back down. Don't know how much louder to get, doesn't say. Again, it's interpreting things. And I'll talk about interpretation a little bit later. But that's what the signs mean. Then in the middle of the page, they talk about a phrase. It's another term, musical term that we use. A phrase, is simply put, is a musical thought. We talk in sentences. Well, music can be played in sentences. A phrase. And a phrase can be indicated or may not be indicated. You'll hear it. You'll just hear the music. You'll know, okay, that ended one sentence. That just made sense. Or sometimes they'll put the curved line like a slur or the legato line. They'll put that over the phrase to indicate the phrase. This is another thing this curved line can be used for, to indicate phrases. The problem is, when it's indicating a phrase, it doesn't necessarily mean you connect the notes. So now we're getting into other things. For our purposes right now, when you see that curved line, connect the notes. So we'll get more into phrasing a little bit later. These crescendo and decrescendo and phrasing, that's all part of articulation. That's stuff we do when we add the staccatos and accents. We cover this too. So I'll come back to this when I get to the articulation. So for this piece, Morning, a 3/4 time, treble and bass clef, starting out with the left hand here. I'm going to take both hands together here on this piece, sort of. So you're starting out here, and they're just quarter notes, no big, until you get to the last measure, the first line, eighth notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and then second line. So we're actually in middle C position. We get over page 67, now the left hand has to come down. You got one beat rest there at the bottom of 66. You got one quarter rest to come down here to C position. And the right hand takes the melody. And if these chords, they're tied, all three notes are tied, so you're going to hold them down for 6 counts. Then play it again. Eighth notes. You lift up. 1, 2, 3. See, the left hand is tied. This is the second line, the last two measures on page 67. The left hand is tied. All three notes are tied. They have to tie every note in a chord they want tied. Otherwise, you play the note again. So you hold it down for 6 counts, but the right hand is not tied. That curved line, that's for the phrase. That's not a tie. See, that's the problem we have, is this curved line is used for multiple things. You got to figure out which one. So here you're going to play both E's. Then at the end of the line you're here. Then the left hand has to come up again. You just lift up and move. little trick you can do here is, since your right hand is already here, you can play the first note in the third line with the right hand if you want. And as you play it, move the left hand up. Like that. There's nothing wrong with it if it'll help you. And for the last two measures, you're here. And that F is tied for both measures. You're going to hang on to it for 6 counts. And then in the last measure, the left hand is up here, and you're going to just play those two. So you work out the fingering and the rhythm and get that all worked out, and then we go back and we add the articulation. And this, really, it's most slurred. It's just connected. But just lift up here. Well, here at the end of the first phrase, you have to lift up. They got a quarter rest. So, yeah, you're going to lift up. And we're on page 67. The first 2 lines is one phrase. You're going to connect it all. But at the end of the second line, you're here, then lift up, it's the end of a phrase, and actually this gives you a chance to move your left hand up here. Because you just cut the notes at the end of the second line just a hair short, because the beat has to be steady. You don't cheat the beat for this. You just cut these notes a little short and move up. So forth, and that's that. That's really about the only articulation they're giving us, the phrasing. Dynamic-wise, it starts out moderately soft. The MP, the mezzo piano, remember that? Sort of soft. I don't know what it is. But then in the second line, you got that swell. You're going to get louder. Go up to about a moderately loud. Just go up a little bit. Second line is... Now, when I get these swells, I look in the middle of the swell to see what the note or notes are, and that's my target. I'm aiming for that. I'm going to get louder to that point, and then I'm going to come back off. So here it's like the D and the C. That's where I'm headed. Those are my notes. So down. Those are the notes, and then come back off. And then over on page 67, at the end of the line, you get a little louder. This is not a swell. You're actually going to get a little louder, because at the top of page 67, you're moderately loud. Mezzo forte, sort of loud, whatever that is. That's the right hand. The left hand needs to be soft here. We want to hear the right hand. But then at the end of the line, I'm going to go louder. Up to loud, and I'm going to stay there until the end of the second line. Getting a little softer is kind of easier, because when you play a note on the piano, it gets softer on its own. It dies away on its own. So here in the second line, just listen to the sound and match it for the second E. However loud that is, so it's here. Just, the left hand's dying away on its own, so that's fine. And then you back down to moderately soft. It doesn't matter how much it died away at the end of the second line. However much, I mean, it could have died away completely. It doesn't matter. But at the beginning of the third line, you're moderately soft again. Like you were at the beginning. And then in the last line, you go back up to a moderately loud. So I look at the end of that arrow and see what's there, and that's my note. That's my target. That's the moderately loud part. And then this is part, that's going to be moderately soft. Because this is going to die away. And I want to hear that all the way to the end. Even when I play that, I still want to hear that. And so, then once you have that, then we can think about speed. Well, it moves. It's not a fast piece, but it's not really a slow piece either. It's got to flow. And so, just let it flow. The beat's got to be steady all the way through. If you're hesitating anywhere, work on those spots and get rid of those hesitations. Don't let the hesitations keep happening. That's a trap. That's dangerous. Now they show a little bit of pedaling here at the end of the second line on page 67 for here. I don't know why they're showing it. I disagree with it. If you're not going to pedal anything else, I don't recommend pedaling this, because the pedal adds a lot of overtones. It changes the color of the sound, and this is all dry and clean. To suddenly color this changes, it's just, ugh. So in my opinion, don't pedal it. If you're going to pedal it, push the pedal down right after you play the notes, and then lift the pedal up with the hands at the end of the line. See, they're showing the pedal goes all the way to the next line where you'd lift it up after you play the first note in the next line. If you do that, you cover up the phrase. It's the end of a phrase at the end of the second line. We want to hear silence before we want that breath. It's here. So you got to lift the pedal up with the hands so we can hear the breath. So if you do it that way, I'm not going to show any pedaling because I disagree with it. I would prefer you leave the pedaling out on this piece. So you go ahead and learn it, and when you think you've got it pretty well, no hesitation or anything, come back and let's play it together very slowly to double check your notes and rhythms. I'm not going to do the dynamics, just notes and rhythms. So I'll give us 3 counts, so let's play it together slowly. 1, ready, go. Rest. 3, 1, 2, 3, off. Now there is a duet at the bottom of page 67. Not much to it, a bunch of dotted half notes, but I'll go ahead and play that and you play what you just played, but we're going to speed this up a little bit. Again, I need you to go up an octave. So you go up to here and play it all up here. Like so. I'll give us 3 counts. Let's do it together. 1, ready, go.